Holy smoke, we are live. Good evening. We are live, like I said, like we are here every single week right here on Monday Night Chaos. Welcome to each and every one of you, and I thank you all for coming out to see us right here at Monday Night Chaos. If you would, guys, just forgive me. Please forgive my attire. It's a bit warm in this room, as I've mentioned many times before, I'm sure. But please forgive my attire. I didn't wear sleeves or, really a proper shirt, so I do apologize. But you're just going to have to look at my chest. I'm sorry. That's all there is to it. You're just going to have to, this is what you have to deal with. Because it's hot, it's summertime, that's why the Hate Bit podcast is away. If you didn't know that, there's a lot of people who want to know why they haven't heard from us. Because we go away every summer. I thought I made this clear, but, you can't assume what people know. So welcome to Monday Night Chaos, and I want to thank each and every one of you, as I said before, because you could be somewhere else on Monday night. You could be watching wrestling. I doubt it. But you could be somewhere else. You could be at the Shakey's Pizza. You could be anywhere. But you chose to be right here in front of your computer or in front of your screen watching Monday Night Chaos. And I appreciate it very, very much. And I also apologize. I think I cut myself a couple times shaving in my haste. I almost ran out of time before Monday Night Chaos, so I was kind of in a rush. So if I look a little thrown together, that's because I am. But that's the beauty of this program. It's raw, and it's right here on Monday night, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So we're going to get off to the rest of our show, or get our show underway, and usually I always say that this is the program where I rap about what I want to rap about, and then we rap about what you guys want to rap about, and I am just kind of worn out, frankly, from the SummerSlam yesterday. World Wrestling Federation presented the SummerSlam 2014, and it was a big, hot, stinky mess. And I can't say I was surprised, because, frankly, I went to see some independent wrestling the night before on Saturday over in Oceanside, California, and it was over at SoCal Pro Wrestling, SoCalProWrestling.com. I don't get paid nearly enough for that. But anyway, went over to see some of that, and we were discussing the card that we were seeing that night, and then the topic of discussion drifted over to SummerSlam, which was going to be the next night, of course, last night, because they're usually on Sundays, 9 times out of 10. In fact, 12 times out of 12, as it turns out. But I said I guess I have to back up and share what I really mean. And what I really mean is, this past SummerSlam, for those of you that don't know about professional wrestling, this last SummerSlam was the 27th SummerSlam. SummerSlam started way back in 1988. So this was the 27th SummerSlam. I've seen all of them, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you nice folks, about 19 to 20 of them are all-out stinkers. SummerSlam has never really seemed to me, they always call it part of the Big Four being the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and the Survivor Series. The SummerSlam and Survivor Series always seem very tacked on to me. The Survivor Series was kind of like them trying to compete against the NFL, because I don't know, they don't do it anymore, but Survivor Series used to be on Thanksgiving Eve or Thanksgiving Day sometimes. And I don't know, it takes a lot of balls to take on the NFL on Turkey Day, so I'll give him that. But, and the SummerSlam always struck me as, then they market it the exact same way, and always have since I was a kid. Hey, it's hot! Wrestling! Occasionally there's a guy, windsurfing in the background. Things like that. But I was not surprised, because when I got home from the show, Mrs. Yellkaos said, "How was the show, or did you like the show?" And I said, "Well, yes and no." And she says, "What do you mean?" I says, "Well, all the matches that I thought were going to be pretty good turned out to be stinkers. And all the matches that I thought were stinkers turned out to be stinkers. So, at least there was consistency in regard to my expectations." Because, and I don't know if I've shared this on this program before, but I've always considered, at least I've considered in recent times, recent months and years, that the pay-per-views are more or less, and this will depend on your personal experience, more or less Monday Night Raw plus. And nothing more. Even WrestleMania is kind of treated that way. And that's a real shame. A real shame. But I was subjected to many minutes of this, and we watched the matches, and I missed the Cesaro-Rob Van Dam match. The one that I thought was going to be good, and I heard it wasn't very good, and I didn't get to check it out for myself. But everything else was... I mean, I expected nothing from Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. You know, it was pretty damn obvious that Lesnar had to go over for one reason or another, because they're just rubbing your fucking faces in the fact that John Cena was a transitional champion, and I hate that I know that, and I hate that some of you know that, because it's ruined professional wrestling. But I digress. The one good thing, and I've already been asked a few times on Twitter. Don't forget, you can find me on the Twitter at Yellkaos. And a few people asked me. They said, "How'd you feel about the main event? The outcome of the main event?" And I said, if nothing else, on the bright side, I can say that one good thing came out of Brock Lesnar taking away the belt from John Cena, is that despite what you might think or what anyone else might think, Brock Lesnar's not going to be around very much. We're probably not going to see him again until Survivor Series or the Royal Rumble. You know, for one reason or another, he's not going to have to defend the belt because he's Brock fucking Lesnar, and he went to UFC one time. And then, you know, resumed back at his Minnesota farm where he shoots innocent animals. You know, I guess that's really what does it for him. Anyway, Brock Lesnar's going to go away. And the one thing that's good for me, at least I hope this is the way it's going to work out, if I continue to watch the programming on a regular basis, which I try, but it's so hard. But I will say this, I don't have to look at those ugly belts anymore. I don't. I don't know if I've made my feelings clear. I almost feel like I have, because this does come up when I'm in wrestling circles every so often, of my opposition to the World Wrestling Federation carrying around, each champion having to carry around two belts. Number one, the WWE Championship looks like a Super Bowl ring that no one would ever want. It is one of the ugliest championship belts I have ever seen. It looks like Michael Jackson's glove. It spangles, and you can see too much leather. It's ugly, and I hate it. You know, it just looks like the gimmick that it is, and that's a problem. And then I don't care for the carrying around of the big gold belts. Some people don't understand that, and I've come to understand that. I've taken history into consideration, and I've figured out what that is. That belt, along with the other belt, is Vince McMahon, 70-some-odd-year-old, old-ass Vince McMahon. That's Vince McMahon carrying around the dead, decomposing, severed head of Ted Turner Enterprises and Jim Crockett Promotions. That's exactly what that is. But the thing is, that was toppled a long time ago. Yeah, Vince, you won. And now you're carrying around this ugly belt that's a dead belt and doesn't mean anything. So, and I know that maybe I'm putting too much stock into the belts because, you know, at least in that corner of wrestling, the championships don't really matter. They're just plot devices. But I wish they were treated as, you know, the trophies that they're supposed to be. And that was the real problem with SummerSlam, is the whole purpose of this whole damn show, besides all these contrived angles that didn't freaking go anywhere, was to move the belt to the next marquee name. How Brock Lesnar, with his Mike Tyson voice, is still a marquee name, I haven't the vaguest idea. You know, but it's one of those things. Just because you keep saying it doesn't make it so. But the whole purpose of this card, this supposed super card that, you know, there's a funny thing going on, because Hulk Hogan came out and cut a big promo about how you can get SummerSlam for $9.99. It's like, what does that say? SummerSlam last year went for $40, $50. This year it's $10. What does that say? What does that really say? You know, if you were to do something like that in the stock market, that sounds like you're in deep, deep stuff. You know, we won't say which kind of stuff because we don't know yet. We'll find out soon enough. So that alone said enough right there. But the whole purpose of this was to move the belt from one place to the next, away from Daniel Bryan, who was your fucking hero for some reason. Hope you guys can explain that to me sometime, because I have never seen anything come off of that, you know. He looks like he represents all the homeless wrestlers. You You know, and yeah, I'm shit talking a guy that's, you know, supposedly has an injured neck but can stop burglars and shit. I don't buy any of it, but anyway, and I'm using foul language. But anyway, the whole purpose of SummerSlam 2014 was to move the belt from the Daniel Bryan thing that was a mistake in the first place, at least the way it was implemented, over to a supposed, you know, more marquee name, 39, 40-year-old Brock Lesnar, which means that they just, behind it, underneath it, was a bunch of crap. Similarly, like we've been talking about over the last few weeks about Sting and The Undertaker in the, you know, in WrestleMania, they're just going to put a bunch of crap underneath it so that way that looks good by way of comparison. And we learned in SummerSlam, at least in my eye, no one came out as a shining example of anything. It looked like independent wrestling with a super huge budget. And that's a problem that they're not seeming to recognize. They used to be on top of things. You used to know what they were doing for a short span, you know. But that's when they had an unstoppable brand name, and that's the real problem in professional wrestling. Everyone is after an unstoppable brand name. That's all they're really interested in. Everyone wants to be on top tomorrow. You know, you talk to little kids who kayfabe still works in their brains for the most part. They believe wrestling is legitimate and so on and so forth, unless their parents have completely crushed those hopes and dreams. Some people do, some people don't. But then the kids that want to be professional wrestlers, you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? They want to be the WWE champion. And that's interesting. It's like, and I would expect that from kids. But you look across the entire wrestling business, and there's grown people that's all they want. They want to be number one. It's like, you understand it's a show, right? And I don't mean that in a condescending way, but just no one wants to be a team player, and that's why nothing works in the wrestling industry. Similar to YouTube and the gaming industry and the gaming journalism industry. Nobody wants to work together to really make a scene of journalism. Everyone just wants to have their face in front of a camera. Me, give me your advertising dollars. By the way, if you have any advertising dollars, I'll certainly take them. I don't want them, but I will take them. So, anyway, I think I'm telling a bigger story than I really meant to, which should probably take up an entirely different segment. So I'll quit wasting your time. We're going to go and we're going to answer some questions from you fine people, because you fine folks have some fine questions on a pretty damn regular basis. And I'm not going to say I'm surprised, because you're good people. I know you. You're nice people. But I am going to say that I am thoroughly amused, and I appreciate that we got good questions every single time on Monday Night Chaos. So, and if I didn't thank you again for joining us right here on Monday Night Chaos. Anyway, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to try and be entertaining for y'alls while I see what it is that everybody's doing here and the questions being asked. And once again, I'm sorry, but we are at the limitations of Google Plus and the Hangout system and all that stuff. So if your questions get answered out of sequence, don't worry, we'll get to you. I promise we will. And like I said, if you're watching this in a rerun or you didn't get your question answered, please feel free to leave it down there, and I'll come back and I will do it, you know, by way of text. I always seem to do this for some reason. But, you know, I'll get to your question, I promise, as long as you're not being a dick, you know, things will be just fine. So, just thought I'd, you know, share that with you. So let me see here. We got questions here. We got questions. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. Schnazi Schnozborn, who's here all the time, thank you, sir. He says, "Are you a fan of Accept?" I am. And what is my favorite album? I have two favorite albums, actually. One is the venerable classic Balls to the Wall. I enjoy that album thoroughly. And the other being actually a rather recent album. And if you listen to the Hate Bit podcast, you've heard myself and Mr. Razorfist and somebody else, I think, went back and forth with me about this. It may have been Silent Rob, who's apparently dead now. So I don't know that for certain. But in terms of YouTube, possibly. But the other one was Blood of the Nations, which I thought was a really good record. And good stuff. I've got a poster from that. Actually, I think I've got a bunch of posters from that album. If I find my metal posters collection, I got a bunch of spares. I'm gonna be giving them away. So be on the lookout for that video. I'm gonna see if I can find where those damn things went, because someone needs to get a good use out of those, because I'm certainly not. Manic Maniac is here, and he wants to know if I like the Diablo Swing Orchestra. I'm not familiar with them, but the Diablo Swing Orchestra, yes, I enjoy the Diablo Swing Orchestra very much. I am actually quite interested in the genre of dance metal, and a lot of people, I'm sure, shrug their shoulders and scratch their heads. What's dance metal? You just kind of have to hear it. If you're familiar with Hypocrisy, the singer from Hypocrisy is Peter Tägtgren. And Peter Tägtgren is the singer also, and plays guitar in a band called Pain. And they're sort of an electronic dance metal band. I know it sounds weird, but if you check it out, you'll get what I mean. But I am quite interested in that. And I find it funny that genre has not really been expanded upon that much. When you think about all the subgenres, and I know I keep meaning to give a talk about all the subgenres of heavy metal, but it could go on for hours. And I don't even know if my throat would hold up that long. So it might have to be multi-parts or something. Maybe I'll get Razorfist and talk about it, because he's a good guy to talk to about that. He knows quite a bit about that stuff too. And between the two of us, probably too much. We probably would have been better off just writing it down in a book and selling it for public consumption. But hey, why not help out? Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, all the different metal genres. But I'm surprised that dance metal, that particular genre, has not been expanded upon more, and I hope to see that more in the future, because we already have boy band metal. There's a couple of bands, and I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but if I do, I'll bring them out for you. There's boy band metal bands, and I know that sounds weird, and I'm not saying it's good, I'm just saying it's there. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it couldn't possibly be heavy metal in some way, shape, or form. It also is to be understood that with great power comes great responsibility, and I don't think that the record labels are showing that, but what are you going to do? Yes, I like the Diablo Swing Orchestra. Ian Hutchinson here, and he says he wants the Chaos to commence. Well, it has commenced, so calm yourself. And thank you for using the K. I appreciate that. Not sure why. Just thought that might be important, Super Saiyan 3 Doman is here, and he wants to know my favorite rock bands. Well, I think all heavy metal bands are by default rock bands, at least if you have ever been to a record store. I know there's some of you kids out there who probably never been to a record store. You've never heard of a place where they sell physical copies of music, and that's okay. That's okay, because they're a little uncommon. They're kind of like antique stores now. It's not that it's an antiquated practice, because selling things never really goes out of style. It's just not terribly common, and usually places like that have to be run by people who know what they're doing. You'd think most businesses would be run by people who know what they're doing, but I've seen exceptions to that rule. I'm sure there's quite a few people down there in the comments section who could probably give me a number of examples of people who are in business somehow, inexplicably. Anyway, favorite rock bands? Geez, I don't know. You'd have to be more tight in your definition of rock, because that's really wide. I don't like Creed, so there's that. Yeah, because rock and roll has been around for so long, it has kind of had to take on these genre names. That's the only way you're able to really market yourself. It's interesting to hear people who talk about how labels and subgenres don't matter. It was like, yeah, well, then if that were true, then you wouldn't charge any money for people to come see you. It's all part of the marketing machine, and if you want to be part of business, marketing is part of business. It is now anyway. And Lewis Williams is here. Lewis Williams, hello. Let me see here. Kit171 is here, who's here at every live stream that I've ever done. And I know he showed up to the EdT1138 live stream just the other day. Seen him over there. He was asking Ed a bunch of questions. I'm like, I don't get good questions like that. Well, sometimes I do, but he was knocking it out of the park. On the other hand, see, Ed does a lot more pickup videos, so you guys know the kind of merchandise that Ed, keeps on hand, and that's good on you, because that's amazing to me. Some of you folks out there have amazing memories. I mean, I have a pretty decent memory, And when I run into people, excuse me, when I run into people who are familiar with the 8-Bit podcast or my program, they remember stuff that I said way back when, and I just find that very interesting. And I commend each and every one of you for you can remember stuff way back then, because there's some people that have been with me for a long time, and I appreciate every single one of you for doing it. Because without you, I'm sure I'd probably just be talking here by myself. But I appreciate you guys coming along anyway. I really do. Let me see. Doku Fox wants to know my opinion on PC gaming. Do I think I could ever get into PC gaming? Where would you get the idea that I'm not into PC gaming? Come on. I'm into PC gaming. I'm just into old PC gaming because keeping up with PC gaming is a big pain in the dick. And there's no one who can tell me otherwise. Unless you're, you have a subscription to PC World and you're on top of that shit all the time and you know the curveballs that are going to get thrown at you, cool. But even so, PC gaming is just, it's an expensive hobby. Make no mistake about it. But when the games fall in price, and, because Mrs. Yellkaos is a computer technician, there's always PC stuff lying around here. I've got something, you can see in the background, there's a few machines that, I can throw together really quickly and play games on. It's not a big deal. Just the PC games I'm into are old. I really don't think that more power has made a lot of PC games better. Because PC still, for some reason, the high-end stuff anyway, thrives on racing games and first-person shooters. And I'm sure some of the strategy games have really taken advantage of that extra power. But I really think that the extra power has really only made things look shinier and sleeker, which is great for those people that have the money that can throw in for, the 3 or 4 monitor setup and the surround sound and the rumble chair and the whole thing. And then there's those fuckers that do Steel Battalion. Holy smoke! Those guys just have dedication that I personally cannot believe, of an immense proportion. That's just fantastic to me. But no, I am into PC gaming. Sorry if I flew off the handle a little there. But I am in PC gaming. It's just that the PC games that I enjoy, I still enjoy. I still play through Roller Coaster Tycoon. If you were here with us last week, I showed up that I have a copy of Roller Coaster Tycoon on this desk virtually at all times. If not, it's, back there on the case. It never goes away because I always need it sometime. And The Sims and, a number of other things. But, I love PC games. I love to game on my PC. I'm a big fan of my Neo Geo emulator because Neo Geo stuff is really hard to come by in this neck of the woods. So, and buying it online, well, you know how I feel about that. That's like buying real estate in Florida. It's a bad deal no matter how you look at it. Let me see. But yes, I do like PC gaming. I'm on a PC right now. In fact, I think I'm going to play... what was I going to play? I'm going to play Neo Turf Masters on my emulator. On my Neo Geo emulator. Because I love Neo Turf Masters. It's probably the best golf game there ever was. In terms of an arcade. Well, I would call it a dead heat on that one with Sega's Virtua Golf. If you've never played Virtua Golf, if you see a Virtua Golf machine... it's worth the 25 cents. Just to, if you don't like golf, then you probably won't. But it's different than any golf video game that you've ever come across, unless you've played it before. Well, then what are we even talking about? Kit171 wants to know if I like the band Ministry. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Depends on the album. They kind of drift around and do different things, and I appreciate bands that do that. There are people that want bands to stick to doing whatever it is they do, and I don't care. I don't really feel that you should be hemmed in by anything. If you want to go and make some pop music, go do that. The only people who are going to have a problem with it are the people that feel that you owe them because they're your economic base, which maybe a little, But I think that musical exploration is far more important than catering to a complacent group of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Jerks. I don't have a better word than that. I don't have a stronger superlative than that. So, jerks. I think musical exploration is important. It's also important to, remember where you came from, things like that. And that's where you have to wonder, are you an artist or are you a businessman? So, sorry if I expanded on that a bit much. But yeah, I like older Ministry a bit better, but sometimes Ministry puts out an album that's pretty damn good. So, they did some great work when George W. Bush was the president. Of course, Al Jorgensen had nothing but ammunition when George Bush was the president. Let me see here. Manic Maniac says, how many times do you say, and I appreciate it? Well, as many times as it takes, God damn it. Because I want you guys to know that I care. That's important to me. That's important to me because I've been hearing stories. I want to tell you guys a story before we get with the rest of the questions. I've been hearing stories from, I'm not going to name names. I promise you I'm not going to name names, but you know this is convention season right now. It's convention season and all the YouTubers are out there. And they're going to the conventions and they're trying to get their free shit. Because a lot of them, that's the only reason they're in the game, you know, or they're out to plug their network or something like that, which is noble in its own way, I guess. You know, it just depends, I guess. I don't know. I've never done much of that myself, but I've been hearing some horror stories about people running into other YouTubers and people in the online gaming scene or people that are kind of known and walking up and having questions and shaking hands, and those people being absolute dicks to them. And I don't want that to happen to any of you. It's going to happen, though. I'm sorry. You're going to walk up to somebody at the wrong time, and I hope it's not me. I promise it won't be me. I'll do my best to be nice to everybody, because you people deserve that sort of thing. You take time out of your day to come and spend it with me, and I really appreciate that. See? Said it again. Because as many times as it takes, that's what I'll have to go through. If that's what I have to do, then that's what I have to do to make sure that each one of you know that you matter. At least to me, probably not to the corporations, but I don't want to, speculate on that. Icona Music Box says, the first time watching me live. Well, thank you very much. But you're struggling to stay awake because it's 1:10 a.m. in England. Well, go to bed. This will be up. You can watch it as a rerun. That's okay. There's no shame in watching this on a delay. And like I said, if you have any questions and I don't get to it, I promise I'll type it right back to you. So, go to bed. That's okay. It's all right. You can do that. You don't got to stay around. I always feel bad for people that are going to stick around when they don't have to. Let me see here. So, yeah, if you feel like you'd like to go to bed, go to bed. It's okay. Because I know Kit 171 will still be here. He never leaves. He's great about that. Ian Hutchinson brought up the Starcade was also on Thanksgiving. That's right. I forgot about that. Let me see. Ian Hutchinson wants to know my favorite version of the WWF Championship belt. Well, I'm biased because I'm biased towards the one that Bret Hart carried, and actually was first Hulk Hogan actually made famous, and then Bret Hart carried. Which later became the WWF Hardcore Championship, so they just broke it and rubbed their ass on it for a while and then put tape on it, and it became the Hardcore Championship. I understand there was a storyline in there, I don't care, but that was my favorite. It's the last one that really looked like a trophy. They could use that one again, too, because it was a timeless design. I don't care what anyone says. I don't feel the same way about the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. That belt looks like it was tempered from the metal from a genie lamp from 100,000 years ago. Actually, it looks a lot like one of those rectangular skillets. Anyway, Belmont 131 wants to know what my favorite album by Death is. My favorite Death album, it would either be either The Sound of Perseverance or Individual Thought Patterns. And my favorite song from Individual Thought Patterns, while we're talking about it, is Trapped in a Corner. And my favorite song from, while we're talking about it, I really have trouble picking a favorite song from The Sound of Perseverance. That song definitely, I've said that before on this program, but that song definitely feels like a swan song. I think that Chuck Schuldiner knew that he was going to die. I know that sounds kind of screwed up and everything, but, that album plays out very much like a swan song. So, especially with that Voice of the Soul song. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just punch into your Google thing. It should be over there. Death, the Sound of Perseverance. And check out that record if you haven't already. I know it's a fairly well-known album, but not everybody knows everything, and you can't assume that people know things. Caldeo the Horse, who's here, again, thank you very much, says, what are your opinions on teenagers? I think they're fucking bastards, each and every one of them. Unless they watch my show, then they must be okay. My little brother's a teenager. My little brother is 15, and he's a pain in the ass from time to time, but it's weird because he's 15, but he's like the same size as I am. It's weird. I think they give him too much McDonald's or something. But yeah, teenagers for the most part, especially teenage girls. EdG1138 and myself, we were having a discussion about that, and he's got a teenager on the way. Well, he's got one, and then he's got another one coming up. And but we were talking about how 15-year-old girls are spawn of hell. They're terrible, and sometimes that continues on up into for at least a few years, up until 36 or 37 in many cases. So, let me see. Lewis Williams wants to know what I would do to make the WWE better, and are there any modern wrestlers I like? Of course. I think I talk about that pretty regularly. Granted, a lot of my favorite wrestlers right now are in Japan, in New Japan. There's a guy coming from New Japan called Fergal Devitt who just got signed to WWF, and hopefully they do something with him because this kid, you'll look at him and mark my words, he looks like just a nice British kid, but he is a freaking heel. He works, and there's somebody trying to garner my attention. But he is a heel through and through, and he works in that real strong Japanese style. And he's brutal. And if you see, I don't know what they're gonna call him. I'll let you know as soon as I see him. I'll let you know what he's called. And I hope they don't mess him up because this kid is mean. He is a mean man. And that's hard for me to. That's really hard to say, in an era where I shouldn't say everyone, but where a lot of people knows that wrestling is, it's worked. And but yeah, this kid, him, and they've also signed Kevin Steen, who I think is a big fat piece of shit, who is not deserving of any of the acclaim that is bestowed upon him. I really think that he's mostly famous because he's a fat kid that jumps off of ladders. I've never seen him do anything all that impressive. Impressive for his size, sure. But I don't see him as charismatic, and I don't understand why people love him, except that he, maybe just like the way they love Mick Foley, is they love to watch you put your body on the line and bleed for their entertainment, and you do it for $25 in a freaking American Legion Hall. Not him, he's now doing it at state fairs, so, he's really moving up in the world. But anyway, I'll get off of that topic. Let me see here. Doku Fox wants to know if I've ever seen Donnie Darko. I saw Donnie Darko once. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have to. I have no other choice. There was a girl. Who is that? I can't remember. But she said, "Do you want to come over to my house?" I think she was using me for a ride though. Because her friends ditched her or something. She's like, can you take me home? And I took her home. And she's like, you want to come inside? Sure. I think I was like 19 or 20. Sure. And she said, sit down. Let's watch a movie. And she put on this Donnie Darko movie. And I don't remember a lot about it. I just remember I stayed there because I thought there was going to be, some sex in it. As it turns out, there was some sex in it. So that's why probably I don't remember a lot about Donnie Darko. So, yeah. Apparently, though, if you put on Donnie Darko, you could get some sex out of it. So... In which case, I highly recommend Donnie Darko. Let me see here. Oh, man, if this thing refreshed on me, and now I lost everything. Hold on. Lewis Williams says the new Accept album is good. That's good. I'll have to check that out. I'll look into that. Kit7171 says, what was the last Metallica album you liked? I remember you mentioning in the past, as part of a longer rant you did about Metallica. Wait, I did a rant about Metallica? I can't remember if I've ever given a shit that much about Metallica to devote an entire rant to, because it's amazing to me that I still, to this day, on the internet, people still bicker back and forth of who's the better guitar player, Kirk Hammett or, Dave Mustaine. When I'm really wondering, who's going to die of some form of cancer first? I'm not going to name names, but sometimes that comes up. And that's just amazing to me. But the last Metallica album that I liked, well, do we mean studio album or release entirely? Because I know the album where I got off. And when I say got off, I mean like a train. I was like, that's it, I'm out of here, which was Saint Anger. I made it through the Load album. The Load album, if you put the Load album and the Reload album together and, picked out the better songs, you'd have a much better album. But, once again, musical experimentation is not a bad thing. There's some interesting songs on those records, so I enjoyed those. And the Garage Incorporated album, which was good. And what else? The S&M record, which I thought was interesting. A lot of people bitched and complained about it, but if you don't like it, don't buy it. It's kind of like the same thing in video games. People make this assumption like every single video game release means something to the history of, like, maybe it might in small doses, but the fact remains is it's now just a record. It was years ago. Let it go. But yeah, Saint Anger, I just turn it on and it's like they didn't even try. So that's my feeling, is that they just didn't even try. And that's where I like, that's it. I've had enough, And I gave away my Metallica shirts. I think I have one or two hanging around somewhere, but yeah, it's just like, all right, that's it. I'm done. These records, I'm good. And that was like what? Like 11 or 12 years ago. My God. Horrible. And don't bring up Death Magnetic, because Death Magnetic's a hunk of crap. I don't care what anyone says. Woody's here, and he wants to know my thoughts on Samuel L. Jackson wanting to reprise his role as Mace Windu in the upcoming Star Wars 7. Well, isn't there hundreds of years between Episode 2 and Episode 6? I mean, he could reprise as, like, the way Obi-Wan was, as a hologram, maybe, or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. I don't care. I've never cared that much about Star Wars, and now that they're making another movie, I don't see any other reason to care any further. Hope they make some money. So, whatever. Let's not pretend like this is the first time that series has been whored out. They've been whoring out that series since before I was born. And I was born a little while ago. Let me see here. Kenshiro Online says CD or vinyl. Typically, for its convenience, compact disc. I find, and that depends on if you're talking about true analog vinyl or if you're talking about this new, which is essentially a digital audio source transported onto digital vinyl. That stuff is overpriced. You're not getting the same. Vinyl is great. Not all music sounds better on vinyl, I'll be perfectly honest, and that also has to do with the capture process and so on. But for its convenience, compact disc, really. But vinyl's good too. It just depends. Sometimes it doesn't even matter, and you're paying extra for it, so then that makes it worse. In my opinion, if you overpay for something, that automatically makes it just a little bit worse in one respect or another. Lone Wolf Warrior, from my personal experience, what should a proper WrestleMania leave you feeling like? Well, it should be like every other wrestling card. It should surprise you and entertain you and inspire emotion involuntarily. Sometimes they call that smiling. Because even supposed legitimate sports don't even have that emotion anymore because they don't know how to inspire emotion. They could learn a thing or two from the internet because what it's really all about is attaching yourself to characters that you genuinely care about, even if they're not legitimate. Look at Harry Potter. people are just in love with that. I know it's not quite the hip thing that it once was or whatever, but people are absolutely in love with it. And that's a beautiful thing, especially for J.K. Rowling. But I think that's important, and that's the problem. If you're not going to provide a genuine wrestling experience, then at least provide compelling characters with stories that you can get into. At least do that. Because, in my opinion, people believe that professional wrestling, you got me talking about wrestling again. Professional wrestling is, soap opera with brighter lights, or soap opera for men. And there are men that watch soap operas, make no mistake about it. I know a few of them. And they do it so they can talk to women, because I know dudes that like to go and hit on older women at bars. Actually, I know dudes that like to go hit on older women at soccer fields. So, and if they know about the stories, it turns out it works. At least that's what has been reported to me. But anyway, and there's this idea that professional wrestling is this soap opera for men, and I don't agree with that. I believe that when wrestling can't be genuinely compelling as sport, as wrestling, if the wrestling can't be compelling, then you can fall back and have to use those, contrived storylines. I shouldn't say contrived, but, storylines, angles, things like that. That's to make uninteresting wrestling matches interesting again. That's a crutch. But if you're using a crutch the entire time, you become dependent on it. And then, like anyway, you ever seen anybody who just had a crutch for too long, became dependent on it? Now they walk kind of funny. The WWE has been walking funny for a long time because they've been dependent upon a crutch that was designed to get them to the next level. And they've been trying to get to the next level since 2003, if not longer. Because as much as I didn't like the Attitude Era, that was the next level for them. The Ruthless Aggression Era, on the other hand, was the cooling period. And now they've been cold for so long, but since merchandise sales have always been great, and they've been lying to the people who run the stock market and, doing that sort of thing. What do they call that? Stock and currency manipulation. I should say currency manipulation, but manipulation of the stock market, through press releases and public relations and things like that. That's simply that's like squatting in a house that's been foreclosed on. It just simply slows the process. It doesn't really stop anything, but it slows the process. Let me see here. Super North Show wants to know if I buy new games for old consoles. We have this discussion like every week. Everyone asks me that. Yes. It just depends on the pricing and depends on the game, and if it really strikes my fancy. I think I've talked about on this program and the Hate Bit podcast and on Ed's program on Ed TV over there. I've discussed that I have seen some of the offerings from Time Walk Games and a few of the people that do that sort of thing, and I really admire what they do. What they do is such an art. Just, usually when it's a one or two man team to just make that happen, it's such an art. It's a beautiful thing, but I have such a hard time to throw down $75, $80, $100 on what is essentially a ROM hack. And I appreciate what they really do, but the same way that I appreciate the Mona Lisa, I don't need to take it home with me to appreciate it for what it is. So, I mean, maybe that sounds like a crummy attitude to have, but that's just where I am on those things. So, and in the event that those games start getting introduced into the the general population of retro game sales, and they start falling in price because of their, because there's more of them in supply, then that's cool. I hope people don't start thinking that they're rare, because again, rarity does not dictate price. Demand dictates price. Rarity can force demand in one way or another, but you have to make the demand first. Otherwise you're just holding products hostage, and after a while, all you have is a museum. Because money going out or money staying out is not what you're there for. But I don't want to tell anybody how to run their business, because apparently they know better than I do. Kit171 wants to know, do I have a favorite guitarist? No, I don't. There's a handful of guitarists that I like. I like guitarists to listen to, but as far as influences, I only have a handful. So I couldn't say I have a favorite. I like a lot of guitarists. If I were to say if anybody really inspires me musically, is horn players, bassists definitely, and keyboardists. I don't really admire that many guitar players. I don't know why that is. Like I said, I like different people for different reasons, but I've never really had an infatuation with a particular guitarist. Maybe just because thanks to, I guess, maybe my dad. My dad introduced me to a lot of guitar players because I think he hoped deep down that I would become a guitar player, and then I did. So, let me see. Red Blaze wants to know, what is my opinion on strategy guides for games? You get them whenever you can, just for certain games. Pick them up wherever you find them cheap. For me, I get them whenever they're cheap. Like $1, $2 here and there. Truthfully, now, because I have so many, if you can see the shelf behind me, you can't see it because it's kind of dark towards that part of the room. But that shelf, a couple of those shelves actually, they have strategy guides. They're starting to bow a bit. In fact, if you watch Johnny Millennium on the Happy Console Gamer channel, you can see that there's massively bowing shelves in that display behind him, and I'm starting to have a similar problem. So now the only thing I really collect as far as strategy guides are official Nintendo Power strategy guides, official from the Nintendo Power. Those, and I try not to pay very much for those either, but because they're very handsome, I think they're really neat looking. And above all, just games that I like, games that I want to explore further, because I miss things. That's why they're hidden. So, and sometimes that's fun. I don't like to play through a game. I leave the strategy guide really until I'm frustrated. That's really the only time is when I feel like I'm stuck and I'm glad to have a map, because I paid for the whole damn game. Why should I have to earn my way into Now, I guess that might be let's say I'm against the challenge. No, but there are things that I'm going to miss. You're going to miss. 100% takes a long time, and a hint never hurt anybody. So, never hurts to have a hint to get somewhere, because after all, it's entertainment. Unless you plan to be an e-games competitor, a competitive video game player, it doesn't really matter. Just have your fun. And if that's what you want to do, and you can make money at it, good for you. But have fun with it. So I'm not against strategy guides, and I like to collect ones for the games that I like. Or if they're Nintendo Power, because, like I said, they're really handsome. Especially if they're in good shape, And I keep the Pokemon books, because they're good looking too, and they always have neato posters inside. But I can't bring myself to pull the poster out. So, Manic Maniac wants to know if I like Hail Spirit Noir. I don't know what Hail Spirit Noir is. I'm terribly sorry. Ian Hutchinson wants to know what I think Razorfist would be like drunk. Razorfist would probably just throw up a lot. He doesn't drink at all, and he's kind of like the CM. He calls me the Shawn Michaels of the Hate Bit podcast, which is kind of true and kind of not. I definitely try my best to bring the show, but he's more of the CM Punk in that he doesn't drink and he doesn't do this, but he's good at what he does. So, but I imagine he'd just vomit a lot, because I know that he has very limited experience with alcohol. Whereas me, I like alcohol. You fix me an old-fashioned, and we'll have ourselves a good time. Kit171 wants to know my favorite wrestling game. My favorite wrestling game is Fire Pro Wrestling Returns for the PlayStation 2. All the way down to the ground. I appreciate everything about it. It's freaking hard, devastatingly hard, but it's my favorite. From a guitarist perspective, what do I think of the technical ability of Herman Lee and Sam Toteman? I've seen them from Dragon Force. I've seen them live, and they had trampolines, and they cannot play to save their lives on trampolines. So if they get rid of the trampolines, they might have something, but learning to write songs might help too. So, but that's, that might sound like sour grapes, but, frankly, there's a lot of bands that are far more sharp musicianship-wise, because they get a lot of credit for being these great musicians when, yeah, they're, they're sharp for what they are, for being a half-assed, power metal band. They always have been, even before they got their notoriety. They've always been a run-of-the-mill power metal band, no matter how you look at it. So anyway. Nicholas Kennedy loves spiritual healing from death. That's an excellent choice. Nintendo Game says tips on vocal articulation, kind of random, but I know sometimes I don't speak clearly. I have to repeat myself. Why would you ask me for vocal articulation tips? I don't know. I'm not a voice teacher. I don't know. Let me see here. Caldeo said, the horse says, I'm the only teenager that likes old games in my entire high school. I don't think that's true. There's got to be somebody else. Wear a Pac-Man shirt to school one day. Go to the thrift store, get a Pac-Man shirt, wear your Pac-Man shirt. Somebody will say, hey, Pac-Man. Then you can talk to them, and, and then they'll come over to your house, and you can show them old games, and then a scene will emerge. I promise you. You can't let it just wait for it to come to you. Go get it. And I'm not saying go get it, but let it happen. You could have the retro gaming scene in your high school. You could. You could do it. I promise you. Just go to the thrift store and get a Pac-Man shirt. Or draw Pac-Man on your shirt. And if you don't, after a couple of weeks of that doesn't work, write Pac-Man underneath it. You'll find somebody, I promise you. Every scene has to start somewhere. So, let me see here. Super Saiyan 3 Domon wants to know, will there ever be 8-Bit Podcast t-shirts? Yes, of course, eventually. I really need to find someone who can do the logos that I really want. Frankly, and there's people that have contacted me about doing it, but it would have to be somebody that I would have to deal with personally, and then I'd have to find a production house that would do the kind of work I want. And I'd also have to find out what would be a good price to charge, because I don't want to overcharge people. I really don't. I don't want it to be like that. And I want it to be as easy as possible for people to get a hold of it, because whenever I want to support somebody, but I see they have this big convoluted method of getting a hold of their merchandise or whatever, it's like, oh, man. Because, you're going through a lot of trouble giving up, your hard-earned money, and I understand that. And you don't want to, jump through hoops of fire just to get it, too. So that's why. And I appreciate it. I apologize if it's taking a long time, and I know if you guys want merchandise, I'm really working on it. I really am. And, by the way, a few people have already asked, no. These shirts that you see here are not mass-produced. These are prototypes made by hand. So I'm sorry if I know there's a few people that asked me if I could sell them one, but there are no more. All the 8-Bit merchandise that you may have seen come up throughout the last few years, they're all just prototypes. They're made by hand. So I apologize if I rained on anybody's parade there just then. But yes, there will be. Like I said, I just have to find the people that I want to work with, because I want to offer the best product I possibly can. Because you guys deserve that sort of thing. For supporting for so long. And if you're going to, give up your hard-earned money for something like that, you deserve the best product available. I mean that. I'm going to need to refill my water here. Let me see here. Liu King 02 says, what is up? This came at the perfect time after being dumped. Lou just come in here and told everybody he got dumped. That's a shame. Was she a bitch? Or he? Or I don't know your orientation, so I don't want to assume anything. But that sucks. But hey, plenty of fish in the sea. The problem is most of them are irradiated from the nuclear disaster in Japan, but you can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you get what you need. So, anyway, Sonic Head. Oh, that's a terrible handle. Sonic Head F word. I don't want to say that. Goes to the ICW shows. That's interesting because I watch the ICW shows on YouTube, and they have the smallest damn. Well, I shouldn't say the smallest damn room I've ever seen for a wrestling show, but they could fit a lot more people if they had a lot less equipment in there. Honestly, they have too much equipment for such a small space. But I do watch that program. I watch them, ICW Online. And, yeah, you saw him in Glasgow. That's cool. Yeah, Fergal Devitt's quite the stuff. And I hope he does great things in the World Wrestling Federation. Gavrilo Marx says, do you have a set schedule and time for doing these live shows every week? Well, we're usually here at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Mondays and Thursdays. For the most part, we try to anyway. Because people asked for more live programming, we're bringing more live programming to each and every one of you because you deserve it. Well, not really because you deserve it, but because you asked for it. And ask and you shall receive. Most of the time. Like if you have to ask for a blowjob, probably not, because it probably would have come by now if if you were going to get one. Let me see here. Venom 12 asked, have you ever had a game that you were getting really into, got to a really hard part that you did beat, but right as that happened, the power went out or someone tripped over the cord and you lost a save? So, I don't know if that's ever happened to me, but that brings up an interesting point. Mrs. Yellkaos and I were having a discussion about how that's not a problem anymore because the game's saved for you now. I think that, and that's something that is under-advertised about modern gaming. They save for you. Because I know a lot of people who have bought a game, put in that game, played that game for an entire damn day. For instance, this is back, say, like the PlayStation 1. Played for an entire damn day, and then went away to go pee, came back, something happened, lost the whole damn game, and then just stopped playing video games for months because, this is when we were kids and you had like 5 games. This many. Yeah, not this many, but this many. You had like 5 games for your game console because they were expensive. And I know people that just gave up on games for months. And that's I think one of the greatest achievements that has come along in modern gaming and is not touted nearly enough is that the game's saved for you. You could say that might be taking away an extra challenge, but F that noise, man. You don't deserve that. You should be able to play your game and not have to deal with the BS or the limitations of your power grid and stupid crap like that. And I'm glad they thought of that, and I'm glad they make that work now. And if any developers are not implementing things like that, shame on you. Because you would have loved that when you were a kid, and the technology is available. There's no excuse not to. And I know that every now and again we get some budding game designers here to watch the Yellkaos program, and I thank those people for coming out. But if you are one of those people, you should know that, and if you don't, shame on you. Let me see here. Kenshiro Online wants to know what I think about Link being in Monster Hunter 4. I had no clue. Don't care. Don't play Monster Hunter 4. I guess it would be a similar attitude about him being in Soul Calibur 2 on the GameCube. I like Soul Calibur 2 though, so that's different. But hey, whatever. I thought I really thought the Mario mods and stuff for Tekken Tag Tournament was kind of dumb. But as that's grown older, and as I've really had a chance to really absorb that, it kind of gets funnier every time I look at it. I'm going to buy that game one of these times because I know it's going to turn up cheap soon. I understand it already is, but just haven't gotten around to it because, I'm still sitting on unfinished games. It's been a really busy summer, so. That's why, people ask me if I'm going to engage in the Summer Backlog Challenge, and every single year I get set up and ready to handle the Summer Backlog Challenge, a bunch of stuff comes up, and it just ruins everything. So that's why, it seems like every damn year, or it's just too hot to do anything, things like that. So, but yeah, Link being in Monster Hunter 4, don't care. Cool. If people want him in there, cool. If not, Cool. Once again, if you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. No one's putting a gun to your head to make you take out your debit card. Kit171 wants to know, if you came up with your own console, what would it be called? Kit, I'm pretty sure you've asked me that a couple of times before, and I get asked that on a pretty regular basis. I would never want to have to design something like that. That just sounds like a big pain in the shorts, and more trouble is worth. But what would I call it? I'd call it the Kaos. K.A.O.S. Just like FAO Schwartz, like in that kind of logo. It would be really corny, and it would have a bunch of 90s tood. What color would it be? It would be like key lime, or not key lime, but just fluorescent lime green. That way you take, God damn it, I have arrived. Because I'm so sick that the consoles just want to look like pieces of stereo equipment. I'm sure we've had that discussion about my so far my growing disdain for the PlayStation brand, a company that cannot handle the fact, just like Microsoft, they cannot handle the fact that they make toys. They have a division that makes toys, and they cannot admit that to themselves or to you. And that's why things are the way they are, because you got a bunch of computer companies with toy divisions that will not admit that they make toys. If they would just absolve themselves of the fact that they make toys and actually make some toys as opposed to trying to make movies that play like toys, they could really have something. I know they could. They also need to stop trying to appeal to adults, because adults playing video games, I shouldn't say, it tapers off at a certain point, no matter how you look at it. And sure, gamers are older now because games have been around for longer. You know, very few of you can remember a time before video games were part of American culture, a part of international culture. You know, as long as most of us have been alive, or as long as most of us can remember, because there's not a lot of people who can remember their entire lifespan, but for that entire time, there has been, for as long as I've been alive, video games have been around. Not like they are today, but still around. There were arcades and all that sort of thing. So, anyway, I got way off topic, didn't I? Did I forget to make a point? I don't know. Ian Hutchinson wants to know, when will he be able to purchase the Larry Bundy Jr. butt crack kit? That's actually available at LarryBundyJr.com. So if you just go over there, and if you don't see the listing, just tell him that Yellkaos said that the Larry Bundy Jr. butt crack kit was available here. And if they say they don't have it, they're lying to you. And he also wants the Razor Fist bullet belt and mascara kit. There's no mascara in there because it turns out the brush could be turned into a weapon. So there's actually just liquid eyeliner pencils. But yeah, and the official Razor Fist bullet belt, we're still working on it. We're hoping to use actual. See, Razor Fist demanded this. Actually, the bullet belt needs to be made of bullets used during the 1980s. They can't be any bullets used past like December of 1989. If it's used past December of 1989, he throws them away, because apparently the 80s was the best decade that there has ever been. So that's why it's taking so long. We're only getting bullets that were used in the 1980s, so it's taking a long time. You think we could get something back from all that Iran-Contra scandal bull nonsense, but hey, what are you going to do? Kelty the Horse says, cats or dogs? I'm a dog person, but we have cats around here, so I've kind of grown into a cat-dog person hybrid. I don't know if I'd really appreciate cat-dog all that much. Can't imagine it's a terrible thing, but you never know until you try, and I'm not really that interested in trying. Let me see here. Jonathan Turney wants to know, am I a fan of Rammstein's gigs or shows? They put on an interesting show. I just don't really care. I saw it once, and then I saw them do it again, and it's like, wow. Because I don't like their songs enough to sit through the show. It's a great show. Just like Kiss is a great show. Just like Gwar is a great show. Just like people would insinuate that Slipknot and Mushroomhead are good shows, and I disagree with you. I think the Slipknot show is definitely a heavy take on the Gwar show, and Mushroomhead is definitely a takeoff on Rammstein. So, and I think that Mushroomhead has gotten more over with people who like Rammstein, and I'm not going to call that cheap, but, you know, I always thought they were kind of talentless to begin with, so they're kind of like the green jelly of their time. You know, they've got maybe a couple of good songs, and the rest is filler to be an excuse for an over-the-top live show. You know, it's like if you wanted to be an over-the-top live show, why not just go to Vegas? Which, if you didn't know, well, we're talking about that right now. Don't forget, Classic Gaming Expo, September 12th, 13th, and 14th at the Riviera Hotel, Casino, and Convention Space in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. It's actually in Winchester, Nevada, but we won't tell anybody. And make sure you go and check that out. For more information, go to cgexpo.com because it's the WrestleMania of gaming expos. I really mean that. It's the granddaddy of them all. And if you can make it out there, you owe it to yourself. So, while we're doing that. And I guess that was a plug for Mushroom Head at the same time, but I really didn't mean to do that. I really didn't. You'd love to see me playing those bongos? I tried to play those bongos. Those bongos have no sound. They have no acoustic qualities whatsoever. I'd be better off playing my lap. Luce Williams wants to know if I'm a fan of AC/DC or Kiss. I am. I like AC/DC. I really thought they were going to retire by now, but hey, as long as people are still buying the records, good for them, because they're as good as they've ever been. I wouldn't say they've gotten better with time, but I'd say they're as good as they've ever been. Kiss, I understand the Kiss live show is, you know, still pretty decent, but I've heard the records, and they're pretty stinky. On the other hand, Paul Stanley is cranking out some good solo stuff every so often with that jet black hair of his. I wonder if he dyes the hair in his chest, too. You know he does. Maniac wants to know, do I like the game Audio Surf or Audio Surl? I have no idea what that is. But if you feel like it, drop me a line over on Twitter or on Facebook if you're over there, and you should, because anybody who's here right now can attest that some funny stuff go on the Yellkaos Twitter and the Yellkaos Facebook page. So make sure and check that out. Funny stuff goes on there. But anyway, yeah. So and if you, please. Because I'd love to hear. That way we can talk about these things. Because sometimes you guys are so just knee-deep in that niche stuff, the stuff that I don't know a whole lot about. And I'd like to know about those things so we can have a discussion and talk about those things. Keldia the Horse says, what are my thoughts on the Completionist? I've never seen... I assume Completionist is a YouTuber. I've seen the channel pop up here and there, but I've never had the interest to really click on it because I guess in a Completionist are the people that 100% games and whatever. You know, I don't understand, like, the people that watch Let's Plays, and I shouldn't, it's hard for me to explain, because there are some people that just Let's Play, and they have, like, nothing to say about the game, and yet they don't get copyright strikes and things like that, and not that I'm, advocating that sort of thing, I just find it interesting, but no, I have no experience with the Completionist. I guess maybe just I can't be bothered, and I feel bad about that, because there's a lot of people, and you guys asked me about a lot of YouTubers that I've just plain never heard of. I'm not sure why that is, because I think I'm fairly out there in more ways than one, as a matter of fact. But I try and see what's going on, and there are people that I just go under my radar, and if you think I should check them out, feel free to share it with me. I appreciate that. I appreciate a lot of things, like the art that is professional wrestling, among other things. Lupacillo wants to know if I'm wearing the 8-bit jockstrap. No, the 8-bit jockstrap is Silent Rob took that and ran. Just like when Ric Flair took the World Championship Wrestling belt with him when he left that company, Silent Rob took the 8-bit jockstrap, and I really hope he doesn't send it back, because it's been in Ohio. Ew. Kit171 asked me, what would I do to improve the current state of the WWE? That would require a multi-point plan, and that would require having to scrap virtually most of the product, and they're not going to do that. That would be a huge risk, and they're not into huge risks. Just like most corporate entities. They're not interested in risk. They want a sure thing. And they wonder why, like I said, garbage in, garbage out. I can tell you a lot of what's wrong with independent professional wrestling, but WWE, you would have to scrap the entire product and, do a lot of things differently. One thing, somebody asked me, Because there's talk that the WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, needs to slash like $20 million from their budget, which is actually turning out to be closer to $40 million now, because as it turns out, the WWE Network is not bringing in the money they thought it would, because people aren't paying for as many pay-per-views anymore. It's actually cheaper in the long run to just go out, buy a PlayStation 3 and get the WWE Network, and you would have that would be so much cheaper than buying just a year of pay-per-views. A year of pay-per-views is like $600, $700. You can go out buy a PlayStation 3 for $259 and get $10 a month on the WWE Network, and there you go. So there you go. And most of that money went to Sony. You see where there's a fault, a massive fault crack in this plan? So, but one thing I could say is, one thing that really messes up their product, they have too much lighting. And I mean just the lighting rig that lights the stage, the ring, and the crowd and all that stuff. If they cut down on a little bit of lighting, that could save thousands of dollars. Thousands. And my good friend, a buddy of mine, a professional wrestler around here in the San Diego area, Wrestling Matt, if you've seen Wrestling Matt, he's a great guy, and if you keep an eye, if you watch all the internet wrestling, he comes up every so often. So Wrestling Matt, but Wrestling Matt and I were having a talk, and Wrestling Matt said, he asked me what I thought, and I told him the thing about the lights. He goes, well, that's really only shave off so much. I'm like, but if you really think about it, if you think about it for just a minute, you're going to shave down the lights. Now, mind you, you're going to save some electricity, but you don't have to bring the lights, because the lights, you're going to have to buy the lights. You have to bring the lights with you. You got to put them in a truck. You got to pay someone to drive the truck. You got to put fuel in the truck. You got to pay the lease on the truck. On the other hand, if you own the truck, you have to have somewhere to store the truck. Chances are you have to rent or lease land to put the truck on, just to move lights that are showing off how shitty your workers are, that are showing off how bad, because you're seeing work punches where dudes are miles away. Why? Because it's lit to be in high def, and high def, as I've said before, will be the undoing of professional wrestling. It's already done so much damage, it needs to go away. Light Michael Cole and JBL and all that shit the way you want. But the wrestling, the ring needs a little less lighting, and you would save thousands. Why don't I tell them that? Because they think I'm wrong. But that's all right. Robert Sanders says the PC gaming isn't that expensive when you buy games on Steam sales. Sure, but I'm talking about, you have to purchase hardware and keep up with the hardware that can keep up with Steam. Steam's not terribly demanding, don't get me wrong, but to get an optimal experience, you have that. Whereas with my Wii U, I get the optimal experience, and I never have to upgrade that machine. They do it for me. I don't have to buy any extra hardware. I might have, I'm sure there'll be little pieces that go with it here and there, to optimize that experience. But for the most part, I'm not going to have to change out the video card in the Wii U in a couple of years to get what I feel is the optimal experience. So what I meant by PC gaming being too expensive is to keep up at the apex of what is top-of-the-line PC gaming. You can do like what I do. Like I've said, there are cheaper ways to do it. But to remain at the forefront and be with all the latest games and do all that stuff the same way that console people do, because console people, well, it used to be you go to the store, you buy a disc or you buy a cartridge and you put it in your machine and it plays. It's not quite like that anymore, which is really sad, and I'm trying to laugh because I'm holding down the rage by laughing. Whereas, but supposedly you buy it and you put it and you get the optimal experience, provided that you've got a good TV, and that's really all that you have to keep up with is a good TV. So, but what I mean by PC gaming is expensive is to remain at the apex of it, and there are some people that do that, and you must be some rich bastards. You must be the guys that are collecting Neo Geo stuff. Let me see. Make my own shirts? You mean Yellkaos shirts? No one would buy a Yellkaos shirt. Why would anyone buy a Yellkaos shirt? That's a terrible idea. On the other hand, if you want to, they'll be available before you know it, depending on demand. No, I just don't think anyone would buy a Yellkaos shirt. I know that because I'm sitting on a bunch of Crepitus shirts. If you guys didn't know that, I'm sitting on a bunch of Crepitus shirts. So. That I still need to get rid of. So, and right now they're just taking up space. So let me see. Lone Wolf Warrior 93 says, if you, Razorfist, and Alpha all got together one night, how would it end? Alpha Omegas and myself would drink and play Neo Geo, and Razor Fist would drink Ovaltine and get on the internet and yell at people for liking Hideo Kojima. And then we'd say fuck several times. Let me see here. Jack the Ripper wants to know what kind of toilet paper I use. I use the cushiest kind I can find. As you should as well. Have I heard of the YouTube channel Brain Scratch Comms? If you know about Mr. Science here, it's the same thing. I'm not familiar with them. No idea. If I were a wrestler, what would my gimmick be and who would be my rival? I don't know. It depends on who was in the promotion at the time. My gimmick, I don't feel I need a gimmick. I feel that I would, you know, realistically, I don't feel I need a gimmick because you guys have seen me over the years talk to this camera in compelling ways and talk to you and say things that I think are kind of neat. And that's a lot more than anybody's doing on WWE TV because they're trying to teach that. And I feel that the art of cutting a wrestling promo, you cannot teach that. It's either born into you or it isn't. You know, there are some people that have it, but you have to coax it out of them. But you know, if someone cannot do it, you know, and you can't get it out of an actor either. You know, actors are not wrestlers, and wrestlers are not actors. But I wouldn't need a gimmick. I think that I would best work as, you know, showing myself off as a professional wrestler and being brutally frank with the audience that perceives me. And I honestly think that that would get over. You know how I know it would? Because it already has. And like I said, I appreciate everyone for appreciating me, I guess. God damn, man. The ego is strong with this one. Anyway. Super Saiyan 3 Domon says, what was the last good game that you played with a good storyline and gameplay? I really liked good storyline. The last game I played that had good storyline, that I had a really compelling story, was The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. I thoroughly enjoyed that story. And the way that game played, of course, was very similar to A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. But that's okay. You know, I think that it's okay that game mechanics can make you know, a return. I thoroughly enjoyed that game. That game had a really neat story, and you know, had characters I cared about. And I think that a lot of the Zeldas do that. Not all of them. You know, some of them, and it's different for different people. But for me, the Link Between Worlds, it was just. And if you haven't played A Link Between Worlds, do I have it right here? Where is it? 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 There it is. I want to plug this guy because this was a great game, and a lot of people wanted to dismiss it. They're like, "Oh, well, they're just recycling this," and fuck you. You know, it doesn't matter as long as you have a good time. You know, and if you can get it on sale, I recommend it. But that's The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. Yeah, sorry about the glare there, but The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds, and really great story. I enjoyed that one a lot, and I want to recommend to anybody who has a Nintendo 3DS to make sure and get The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. It's a great story. Anyway, with having said that, that's my time. I thank each and every one of you for coming out. I really do. I appreciate it. Also, make sure to listen to the 8-Bit Podcast. I know we're away right now because it is summertime, but hey, reruns, you know? So check all that thing out. And also, I want to remind everyone, once again, that I'm going to be at the Classic Gaming Expo in just a few weeks, and you should be there too if you have the means to get there. So check that out at cgexpo.com. Also, check me out on Twitter at Yellkaos, and you can also find me on the Facebook. There's links down there, so check that out. And once again, I really thank each and every one of you for coming out for Monday Night Chaos tonight, and I want to remind you that you guys are beautiful, and I've been Yellkaos. Good night, take care of each other, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.